Unlock the secrets of franchising success with the Franchise Life podcast. Hosted by Stacie Shannon. Join us for expert insights, success stories, and practical tips every week. Subscribe now and take your franchise journey to the next level.
Hello and welcome to the Franchise Life. Today we have a super exciting, fun entertainment brand that we are going to be named Monster Golf. And with me, I have Chris King, who is the CEO and also a partner in the brand. Welcome, Chris.
Oh, thank you for having me. My pleasure.
You bet. All right. So we're coming up on the spooky season here this fall. So I thought this would be a fun brand to highlight. Not to mention, I really don't have a lot of per se entertainment brands in my portfolio. So I was super excited to see this join the Repum Group and would love to hear the backstory on really how you became a partner in this brand and what drew you to this brand.
Well, I've been in franchising now. I'll age myself here, probably about 27 years. And I started and I cut my teeth with a children's fitness company called My Gym. And I helped them really kind of grow. When I started, they were like 40. When I left, there were 320 in 32 countries. So I call that kind of my grad school of franchising. But I found myself in a position in 2015 where I wanted more. And I couldn't jump over my 5 best friends. I had a really nice gig with My Gym, but I wanted more. So I stepped out and I started looking for something. And I stumbled on, ironically enough, Monster Mini Golf through an Indeed ad. And it was titled brand manager, but when I read it, it was definitely an operations job. It was more of a COO job. And that was always been my wheelhouse. With My Gym, I was, director of global operations, with a focus on ops and training. So when I read that ad, it just really spoke to me. And then when I met with the founder, Christina and Patrick Vitaliano, way back when, 10 years ago, they had a really cool concept. They had about 17 locations open, but it really needed systems wrapped around it. They had really gotten there just by, hard work and grit, and their passion for creativity, which you kind of see behind me on the golf course. So I joined them with the emphasis of just wrapping systems around the brand, getting it ready to scale, really kind of helping them grow it. And then over 10 years, we did just that. We put our heads down and together, we built what it is today. 7 years into it, I became a franchisee, which is kind of a unique path. I had a conversation with my wife, and my youngest child was 3, 2 years away from kindergarten. And I said, hey, what do you want to do when you grow up? And she said, the Monster Mini Golfs you run look like they do very well. Why don't we move? And we lived in South Florida. Why don't we move and find a location where we could do multis? And I will become the franchisee. You continue to be the COO of the company, and we do our thing. So we relocated to Charlotte, and since then we've opened 3 that she runs in Charlotte. And at the time when we had signed our second lease, we were in a franchise advisory council meeting, and it was myself and Christina and Pat on the corporate side, and then our advisory council members on the other side. And at the end of the meeting, Christina said, hey, I think I want to retire. And we've been approached by private equity. It doesn't feel right. Christina and Pat do not have children. This was their baby for over 20 years. So they said, it doesn't feel right. We don't want to go the private equity route. We're going to retire, but would you guys like to buy it? We'd rather sell it to somebody that understands it, that's going to keep the foundation intact. Sure, you're going to innovate. The brand's going to grow and it's going to change, but they really wanted their people to be taken care of. They didn't want a company to come in and potentially ruin the lives of their franchisees. And myself, I was a multi-unit owner. My partner, Nick, owns 4 stores in New York, New Jersey. My partner, Alex, owns 4 stores in 4 different states. And then my partner, Holly, owns 2 stores. She just opened her second store about a month and a half ago. So, collectively, we have so many years of experience. We understand the brand very well. I was the only one on the corporate side, but we broke for lunch and we came back and we said, yeah, we want to take a shot at this. And we felt really honored that they passed it down to us. And then the other thing they said is, grow it. We don't have the energy after 20 years to grow anymore. We understand that if you don't grow it, you become stagnant in this marketplace and somebody could come and really kind of steal our thunder. So we took 2 years of building infrastructure, and here we are in a pretty exciting growth phase after 21 years of being around.
That is so interesting. And I love that you mentioned the private equity aspect of it because that is a trend that we're seeing in the franchise industry just significantly, where private equity is either coming in and buying brands or they're buying specific multi-unit locations of franchise owners themselves. So it's interesting, and luckily for you, they didn't go that route. So now it's your baby and your partners, which is pretty cool. Okay, well, you can speak from many angles then, being a franchise owner, being a franchisor. But this is really, so this is a you guys position it as a small footprint, but in reality, when somebody's looking at either something in the health and fitness or a QSR space, it is a bit larger footprint that you're looking for. So typically around 9 to 12,000 square feet. Is that correct?
That's correct. So the core model, when I joined the company in 2015, 10 years ago, the core model was your mini golf. And that's about a 5,000 square foot, footprint in itself, our main attraction. Then you had an arcade, and you had a couple of event rooms that on the weekends are children's birthday parties. During the week, they're corporate events, team building events, fundraisers, things like that. And we started to add on other attractions. Now, we still will sell our core model if that's the real estate that's available. We really try to make responsible real estate decisions, knowing that's going to be your biggest expense in our model. We're not a cost of goods heavy model. So we let the real estate decide the model that we're going to operate in any given market, and we work the franchisee through that. So we can go into 9,500 square foot if that's the best deal. Because we're still going to do high volume. We're going to drop plenty to the bottom line. But we're nimble enough that we can go to 12, we can go to 15. I have a store in the smallest market we have in Hammond, Louisiana, that's 28,000 square foot, but it just worked. The economics of the deal is what we followed, and that store that worked in that market. So, and the other side of the nimbleness, which I think is really cool for us in real estate today, a lot of your junior anchors, whether it be your Tuesday morning, your rack room shoes, some of these mid-sized junior anchors, they're going out of business, and that retail's not coming back. So
Right.
now we have the opportunity to go into some of these spaces that we never had that opportunity before. And we can go in the space that's narrow and has a hard dog leg in the back where no one else could go in there. We can take that space. And one of the things that we do that's unique is we own the theming and design construction company. We build our own golf courses. The artists, we have artists on staff. We do all the painting. So by controlling that side of it, it lets us go into that space and figure out this is how it's going to work. It's not an if it's going to work, it's how it's going to work. So I think all of those factors and the fact that we can go big, we can go small, we have the revenue to fill the box on either side is a really cool opportunity that we probably didn't even realize we had until just, in the past 2 or 3 years.
And then from a real estate selection standpoint, now you're partnered up with the Repham Group that also helps with the identification of the real estate, the negotiation of the tenant improvement, the lease, and so forth. So, I mean, take the Monster Mini Golf corporate assistance combined with the Repham Group, that's kind of the perfect recipe right there.
Yeah, Monster Mini Golf has always been a support and training company. That's who we are. We've never been a sales company. So when we built our infrastructure for a couple of years and we're ready to start selling, we didn't want to pull what we do really well off the table. We know what we do. We're very comfortable in that identity. Support and training to viability. That's who we are. So we toyed with going to the broker groups and doing it alone. We toyed with bringing in a VP of franchise development. And then we talked to a few of the other FSOs out there and the partners alike. And when we landed on Repham, we really liked that they did two things really, really well. It just wasn't sell. If we went to someone that just sold and put 60 in our lap, that doesn't help us. It just gives
Right.
us more of a burden where, the Repum Group is cultivating the sales and the leads, and they've done a really good job of becoming us. I mean, we're not for everybody. We're a quirky little family, and it's the people that really matter within our organization. They've done a really good job of vetting and us bringing in the right people. And then the fact that they have the build them component, which then can help do the project management that really can help us grow coast to coast on time and under budget. That was huge for us. And those two things are what we needed the most. And we're able to get both of those, but not sacrifice what we do. So myself and my partners are active in the business every day. We're active executives running divisions of the company. We're not hands off the wheel. So we can really sink our teeth deeper into what we do really well as we grow.
So, Chris, what type of investor is being drawn to Monster Mini Golf? Again, this is unlike anything that I currently have in my portfolio or that is out there. So what do the backgrounds of your current investors look like?
Well, it's all over the board, and I think it is that way for a lot of brands.
Mhm.
We're not the $3-5 million single unit investment, but we are somewhere between a million and 1.5. So we need a high net worth individual. We're getting people from all walks of life. Some people just want to change their lifestyle. They just want to change something, and they say, "Hey, if I do one of these or even three of these." I could easily supplant my income, and I could spend more time with my family. So we're getting a lot of people that just want the lifestyle change, but still want to be able to make the same amount of money or even more, depending on how many locations they want to do. And then just a lot of other than lifestyle change, for more personal time with their family, just a lifestyle change from corporate America. My partner Nick, owned real estate brokerage firms. We're getting a lot of people that are coming from the finance backgrounds, and it just speaks to them because it's something so different, but yet it can be so gratifying. A lot of people that come from different project management that see our brand as the simple model that we present it, but they understand if they add a little bit of that previous experience from a personal or professional life into this, they can probably take it even further than some of our franchisees have today. So where, traditionally we got a lot of just mom and pop type franchisees in the past. They just want to change their life. They want to be an entrepreneur. We're getting that, but we're getting a much more, I'm going to say financially and professionally savvy investor that's coming in today. And I would say that's where Repum has helped position us on the map to the right people. For years and years and years, we said Monster Mini Golf, and that's what we thought internally. Monster Mini Golf is the coolest thing in entertainment that no one knows about. Well, what's neat for us too is not a lot of brands have the availability of what I'm going to call an emerging brand. There's lots of markets in the US available right now, but behind us, we have 21 years of legacy support and training. And that's a really unique space to be in that we're just now entering on the map 21 years later. We have franchise locations that have been open 17, 18, 20 years. The validation is there. We're just overexposing it now.
I do love how you shared that you guys, knew that you wanted to focus on growth, but took a step back, spent a couple years focusing on systems, processes, operations to really set the foundation for that growth because
Absolutely.
that's where a lot of, brands kind of get crosswise. They sell beyond their means and then they get in trouble there. So love that you did that. Completely respect
You
that.
know, one quick comment on that. The most important thing is if you have to realize in our projects, we're the biggest vendor in our own project with the construction side. Before this year, Monster Mini Golf, the most we'd ever opened in a year was like 4 or 5. We've already opened 8. We'll do 2 more. We would have gotten 12. We'll do 10. We were at 12, but a couple of those projects got pushed due to financing and just construction to the first quarter of next year. But that was our biggest infrastructure build. Before you go sell 25, before you say you can open 12 to 15 a year, you have to go do it. So we
Mhm.
really took a step back, like you said, and made sure that we could do it, and we had the people and the processes to do it. Because if we didn't, then you just fall flat on your face, and that's no good for the brand.
No, absolutely. And I've witnessed that in the industry before. All right, so let's break down the core revenue stream. So you mentioned, obviously, we see the mini golf is the main attraction. You have the arcade, you host special events, birthday parties, corporate events. What is your what does that look like from breaking down the revenue stream standpoint? Are those your top three revenue streams, or depending on the footprint, are there other contributing
There's
factors?
other contributing, I'm going to call them attractions, but they really kind of lump into, unless you're doing a full laser tag arena, which is totally different. And only about 6 of our stores have that. So it's an attraction we have, and it's not widespread. Other than that, all the other attractions kind of fit into the arcade bucket. Because the beauty of our model is when we add these attractions like a bowling or a laser maze or virtual reality, they just work on the arcade game card. So they don't bring labor to the model at all. It's a very fixed labor model, and we don't have to have a lot of extra people to do our thing. So I would say if you take that into consideration, our form of mini golf is always our driver. It's going to be dominant to somewhere between 50 and 55% across the board because that's what we really hang our hat on. That's what that's our identity. We do that very, very well. That arcade and those other attractions are somewhere between that 30 and 35%. And then everything else falls, to the backside, which would be your birthday parties, your corporate events, and those other like group event drivers. In some of the locations in the Northeast, the birthday parties may be a little higher,
Sure.
but in some of the southern states, they may be a little lower based on inclement weather. But somewhere around 50% for that mini golf, somewhere around 30% for the arcade and the other digital attractions, and then everything else kind of falls under that.
So you mentioned employee count briefly. One of the beautiful things about this concept is it truly is, even though it's a big footprint, it truly is a low employee model. So can you talk us through what that looks like? And let's look at it from a semi-passive ownership perspective, where you're putting a general manager in place.
Sure. I mean, once it still goes back to the design. We design these stores to have a line of sight no matter where you are. So we can run a very lean labor model. Like, let's say a day like today, when school's in session. This is a lighter day for anybody that's in entertainment. I can run a store with 2 people all day long. Basically, the labor can be paid for with 6 mini golfers coming in anytime during 2 to 9 when we open. Most entertainment brands are, they don't even get out of the red until and into the black until they get to the weekend and the birthday parties. We don't have to do it that way because we don't need a lot of people, and our staff doesn't grow exponentially as the business grows. So, the average monster mini golf can run as low as 18% on the labor side, maybe as high as 22 to 23%. My wife runs 3 of our 3 stores in Charlotte. I can tell you that we've got a regional, and then we've got a general manager in each store. My wife cumulatively is in the business about 6 hours a week for all 3 stores. That's really what she gives physically to the business. Everything else is being run, behind the scenes, back at the house at home. But yeah, it is a general manager, somebody that you can trust and develop. It is a 2 or 3 shift leads, people that you can trust when the GM isn't there to open the door, do some light training. You can trust them handling your cash. And then under those 4, you're talking another 9 to 15 part-time, college and high school kids that are mainly working, your evenings and your weekends when traffic are heavy. So, I mean, the labor model, there's not a lot to it. And the business model has been developed over 20 years to be very simple. If you think about it, I'm going to hand you a golf club. I'm going to hand you a golf ball. You're going to walk around and play. I'm going to take those things back. The only real cost of goods we have is in the prizes you get, when you play an arcade game. But even that, it's kind of like Vegas mentality. The house always wins there. So that's a baked in cost of goods based on real revenue coming in before that goes out the door. So we build them with a lot of efficiencies so a small amount of people can run them.
And okay, so You said your hours are typically around 2 to 9. Is that during the week
That's
or
during the school year, during the
school
week.
year?
And then there's now we have our, our what, our minimum operating hours. But if somebody notices there's opportunity even during the school year to open at noon, we're fine with that. You can actually open early if you want. So, but generally we open at 2 because the schools get out at 2 to 4 and you get a little afternoon traffic. But then on your weekends, we're open as early as 10 a.m. and we're closing at 10.
Okay. And what about a food and beverage standpoint? We haven't talked about that. I mean, do you have an aspect of food and beverage in each of the locations, or is that up to the individual
It's
franchise
still
owner?
up to the individual. When we're developing the model and we're looking at the real estate opportunities in any given market, we're saying, okay, with this space, you could do this, this, and this, or you could do this, this, and this, or you have less opportunity or more opportunity. The food and beverage is one of those things that they decide. Most people come into our brand because of the simplicity. And as soon as you throw in the food and beverage, now you have spoilage, now you have increased investment, you have increased inventory, you have increased labor. There's a lot of other complexities that most of our operators choose not to have. We have about 3 or 4 stores that do have a light food and beverage component, usually chicken, fried chicken wings and fries and pizza that they serve to their own birthday parties. But there's only a handful that have gone that. And it's because when they came into our system, they were already comfortable with that operation. But the people that don't have that have a small snack bar with prepackaged foods. Maybe you have a light, Bavarian pretzel, just something to give somebody a little nosh while they're there. Maybe the ices, some fountain sodas. But it's really light, something that you can manage, and also something that you don't really need a health department license, and have that complexity behind you as well.
You could even put a couple vending machines in there,
Yeah,
couldn't
a
you?
lot. So and people have that choice. There's some cool novelty ones out now. They're like ice cream vending machines, cotton candy robots that
Yeah.
make the cotton candy, and all of that is approved if the if the franchisee wants to bring that in. And then from a birthday party standpoint, we usually just go work with an outside pizza vendor in our market and say, hey, I know that your pizzas are $15. If I can sell, if you're my preferred vendor and I can sell X number, if you can give me those pizzas for 11. I'm going to sell it for your price. So there's no really public upsell in the customer's eyes. And now you're helping them out, and now you still get $4 a pie that come in your door throughout the weekend. So there's just ways to work around it where you can still have those elements. And with us being able to go into, 10 years ago, we couldn't get into prime real estate. We were doing a lot of, I'm going to call it flex spaces. But today we're being seen as somebody that can come in where there's opportunity, and we can revive the QSR in a dying plaza because we're going to bring traffic. So what's happening more now than it ever did is we're going into plazas that have those food anchors near us, to where if I have a donut shop next door or I have a Qdoba next door, I can easily just infuse them into my offerings. Like a group event, you want to do the Qdoba taco bar, great. They're next door. They can bring it right over.
Yeah, that is fantastic. Okay, let's talk financials because that's really, you've already mentioned that your average investment is between 1 and 1.5 million. So let's dive into what is your average ticket number, and then what can you share with us from an item 19 standpoint?
The average ticket is 2 different buckets because obviously you have your general walk-in traffic and you have your party and events. So your average party and event that comes in is somewhere between $250 and $400, but there's a finite number of those that you're available to do. Your average ticket that we're noticing that comes in just from walk-in, and that's really where our business thrives, is probably $20 to $30 per person, with an average dwell time of about an hour and a half. And if they're in there for an hour and a half, then there's obviously, once they're there and they've made that one purchase, there's a self-serve kiosk if they want to go buy more arcade games. So we think right at the point of sale register, it's somewhere between 20 and 30 per person. So if a family 4 comes in, the likelihood that initial transaction is $120, that's pretty, that's a pretty safe bet, knowing that there's residual spend once they're in the building and having a good time and they see all the other things, that are available to them. From an item 19, I mean, we put together a very robust, so we were absolutely as transparent as we could be. We broke, I think we put 26 true P&Ls in there. We put them in 3 different categories, showing where our top, our middle, and our bottom, because guess what? Somebody's always at the top, somebody's always at the bottom. There's nothing that you can do about that.
Right.
But I think you'll see the consistency. You'll see the consistency. Our average is a little over 1 million. I think almost 1.1. And if you look at our lowest tier, there's a commonality with those guys. They're still getting a return, but those are the stores that mostly have been around, 15, 20 years. They're the people that are maybe a little disconnected from their business. That middle tier and that high tier, those are people that are fully engaged in their business and their company. And if you look at that sheet, you can see those you can see the net anywhere between 20 and 30, 32, 33%. The money's there. I mean, I think with any franchise system is how gritty and how hard will you grind as an operator in your market. You still control your own destiny. With a brand like us, we're high volume. If you get out there and roll up your sleeves and work for the business, you can do very, very well. And we've learned a lot of lessons over 21 years. What are the top 2 reasons a franchise doesn't make it? Usually it's you picked a bad location or the operator's not following the system. That's just reality across any brand. We are doing a very good job of picking the right location and vetting the right operator today, where over 21 years, you learn those lessons. So we feel very comfortable about the people that we're bringing in now. They do want to be successful. They will roll up their sleeves. We're going to continue to innovate and give them more tools. But the people that go after it can definitely go get it.
If we look at your 2025 item 19, just to kind of put it into perspective for our listeners, for that middle tier, which you refer to as the tier 2, you're looking across 8 different locations, average total income of a little over $1 million. And what you're showing as an EBITDA is about 20%, which comes to about 193,000 to the bottom line, which is fantastic. When we look at tier 1, which is your top performing locations, which includes 9 different ones, you're looking at a total income of 1.4 million, bottom line of around 400K. So that equates to about a 29% net margin, which, it's really interesting because 10% makes in that bottom line revenue makes a huge difference.
Absolutely.
So you can see, the potential of the brand there. So it's really
I will like to say the diversity of our stores too, because I know in that top tier, you have Bellevue, Washington, outside of Seattle, where it rains 340 days a year, and there's density and there's income, and that store should, all things considered, it should be the #1 store. It should do what it's doing. But then you look at Cordova, Tennessee, small community outside of Memphis that doesn't have all of the luxuries, that the Bellevue store is set up with. And they're still running very similar trajectories.
really interesting. And I know that you guys really impressed that this is a brand that can fit in those small American towns where a lot of brands are saying, no, it doesn't meet our demographics or what have you. So that is really interesting and gives pause to some of the considerations when I present as well.
Well, you know what? For the bigger entertainment brands, the risk is higher for them to go into that area than it is for me. So they look at the demographic and say, well, I've got to build 40 to 60,000 square foot. That investment is 4 million. I can't validate that I can go there. Well, I could go in there and build in 9 to 11,000 square foot, probably get one of the best lease deals we have in the entire country, and do just fine because the economics work.
Interesting. All right. So any last takeaways, Chris, that you have for us? If somebody is considering Monster Mini Golf and looking at some other brands, what would be some, I guess, parting words for those individuals to consider?
Well, Monster Mini Golf is a vibe. I actually say in a lot of our internal sales discussions and, to all of our franchise partners that are with us now that Mini golf is actually not our product. Entertainment's our product. Mini golf simply is the vehicle in which we entertain. On these golf courses, there's moving lights and there's disco balls. We have a DJ booth. We train our team to interact with you. It's like an interact to transact mentality. So you get a different experience when you come to Monster Mini Golf. It's an elevated level of age appropriate guest experience. And that's what we really train on. We don't train on mini golf. So first of all, you've got to fit the vibe. If you're a fun person that's looking that loves people, this could be the right thing for you. Again, Monster Mini Golf has legacy operations behind it with 21 years, but we have emerging brand opportunity. And I will just end by saying, it's been an exciting 2.5 years since my partners and I bought it, because one of the things the founder said was you have to grow it. When we purchased this brand, we had 29 total locations. We had 26 open and 3 in pre-opening. I'm proud to say today we have 58 total locations. So we've doubled the size of the company efficiently in 2.5 years. We have 37 open. We'll be at 40 open by the end of this year. And I really believe that we're just getting started. It's an exciting time for us. There's a renewed energy about our brand. So I think if you fit into that vibe box, I think we're somebody that you should take a look at.
Well, congratulations. That is very impressive. And I have no doubts that with the expertise you guys have internally with your corporate team, and then with the partnership you've now formed with the Repum Group, that we'll continue to see that growth and see you exceed 100 units here in the next couple of years, hopefully.
I hope so. And Stacie, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a true pleasure just to sit and chat with you for a bit.
My pleasure. Thank you. So for anybody that is interested in learning more about the Monster Mini Golf brand, please feel free to reach out to me at stacie@fusionfranchising.com. Thanks and have a great day.
Thanks for listening. Subscribe for more on the franchise life.